Hi, Year 12s, we're going to explore dietary fibre. So our science understandings are that I can describe the role of soluble and insoluble fibre and their role in the body and directly in terms of our diet and diseases. So soluble fibre lowers blood cholesterol. Soluble fibre helps reduce our cholesterol by binding to the bile acids in the small intestines. Bile acids, which are made from cholesterol, come from our liver. They enter the bloodstream and raise our cholesterol levels. When these bile acids bind with soluble fibre in our small intestines, they prevent their reabsorption back into the capillaries and blood vessels, reducing the cholesterol and their risk for atherosclerosis, which is involved in cardiovascular disease. So the cholesterol being stuck inside of our capillaries, arteries, and other blood vessels. The fibre-bound bile are then excreted as waste. So they're collected in the feces and come out through the waste procedures. So the other way is by maintaining a healthy digestive tract. Our oligosaccharides, which are a 3 to 10 monosaccharide unit sugars, such as things like resistant starch or soluble fibres, bind in the digestive system, producing this soft, bulky feces for easy passage through the small intestines. These beneficial bacteria that live in our large intestines ferment these carbohydrates, creating gas as a product, and these short-chain fatty acids, which are used as energy for some of our intestine-based cells. So roughly between 8 to 13 kilojoules per gram of energy is created for these cells. So maintaining a healthy digestive tract is a big research topic these days, especially when we're looking at the microbiome. We're finding that dead bacteria from fermentations help bulk out our stools, help with constipation and diverticular disease. These bacteria also support the immune system by inhibiting some of those other microorganisms and bad bacteria from colonizing and growing in our intestines and allow our natural microbiome to flourish and succeed. So insoluble fibre, which is the other portion of fibre, doesn't dissolve in water. It form this gel-like substance. It's less fermented by bacteria, providing little to no energy, but it does add bulk to our stools, which we often will call roughage, and it helps with preventing constipation, reducing risk of intestinal inflammation, blockages, and cancer. So it also helps with taking up space in the stomach and intestines, which promotes us feeling fuller for longer and prevents this overeating. Dietary fibre, soluble, insoluble. As you can see in the table, there's identification of where you can find these in certain food sources. So dietary fibre, its job is to maximise nutrient digestion, slows down the nutrient release, and it improves our blood sugar response. So it produces soft, bulky stools, preventing constipation-related issues, and it promotes fullness, prevents overeating. Foods are classified by majority of their macronutrients. So for example, potatoes, carbohydrates, but also can contain protein. So when we talk about maximizing nutrient digestion, improving blood glucose, we're talking about how it can lower the intake time of these by taking a while for these sugars to break down into those monosaccharides, releasing them out into the body so our cells can use them for energy. So here's a bit of an outline of how soluble and insoluble fibres might have a role in weight loss or improved health. And there's a video here that I would like you to watch in your own time. So just a reminder that carbohydrates are recommended for our daily intake. The acceptable macronutrient distribution range, which is the AMDR we've been speaking about, recommends roughly about 45 to 65% of our daily energy coming from carbohydrates, ideally from sources like fruits, vegetables, grains, and milk. Only 10 to 15% max should be from these simple sugars. Most and the other proportion should come from our complex carbohydrates, those oligosaccharides and the polysaccharides. Additionally, women should consume around 25 grams and also 30 grams of this dietary fibre to allow very healthy digestion. So what happens when we don't get enough carbohydrates, which is deficiency? When carbohydrate intake is low, then therefore glycogen reserves are low. Glucose levels are low, and the glycogen reserves that have been stored in our liver and muscles are the first to kind of be tapped into from our body, converting glycogen back into glucose in a way our cells can use. Once we deplete this glycogen, the next step is to break down protein to supply glucose to our brain and nervous systems. This is why athletes before a big event or after workouts will carb load or carb load after to increase the glucose amount in our cells, preventing the breakdown of this protein and allow the storage of glycogen to go back. Glucose is insufficient. The liver converts fats into ketones, which is the brain's source of energy that can potentially be used, but it does prefer glucose, but it will use fat if needed. This is the basis of that ketogenic diet. So some of the symptoms if I'm deficient in carbohydrates would be that I could be having headaches, weakness, irritability, increased inability to exercise and fainting. Carbohydrates are a major source of energy because it's broken down and converted into glucose, and there's a lack of glucose, we'll feel really lethargic. The brain primarily uses glucose, so it's insufficient in energy can cause effects like headaches and irritability. Another thing that can happen when we have too much carbs is that it can lead to fat storage. So glycogens become full because glucose has been stored as glycogen, that becomes full. Then it's stored as fat, which is adipocytes and adipocyte tissue. And we lead to obesity, increasing the risk of type 2 diabetes, hypertension, which is high blood pressure, and cardiovascular disease and different dental cavities, So carbohydrates. Here's a great video to kind of get your head around the impact on health. The last thing what we want to do in this slide is wrap our heads around the science as a human endeavour, which we'll be looking at for every topic. So don't forget, here is a recap of the communication, collaboration, development, influence and application, and their kind of elaborations that can help with understanding. So this is the article that I would like you to write your questions to, read through. I would like you to explain how the continual consumption of kombucha or other foods containing bacteria can improve gut health and therefore immunity. I want you to discuss one limitation of kombucha mentioned in the passage, so you're linking directly to the article for your 2 marks. So link evidence in the article is the first thing we need to do. If I don't see evidence, then you won't be getting marks for that. You need to also link to those she concepts. So which one are we explaining? We're explaining limitation here. We might be also explaining the application or the influence. We want to elaborate on the impacts or the importance of the idea on society. When I say idea, I mean the thing the article's pitching. So if this idea is kombucha and the use of kombucha and other foods that contain bacteria, that's the idea. Okay. Don't forget, we do have questions to be working through page 35 to 47 of our textbook to help us with testing our knowledge and understanding of this carbohydrate content. Thank you.